Welcome to People and Profit, the business show that mixes cycling, skiing and aircraft engines. Coming up, trade officials from Mexico, Canada and the United States go back to the negotiating table. But is the threat to NAFTA hurting investment? Gobee says goodbye to France, but can dockless bike sharing work in the French capital? We speak to one of the operators betting on success. And we report on Chinese efforts to drum up interest in skiing ahead of the 2022 Winter Olympics. First up, officials from the three countries that make up the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, have been back at the negotiating table. They're trying to rework the trade deal after President Trump threatened to pull out because it didn't favour American interests. While diplomats wrangle over the details, US companies are continuing to invest in Mexico. One such firm is the industrial goods manufacturer Albany International. They've invested $10 million in a new Mexican plant. Our correspondents went to its grand opening.
Turbines, engines, landing gear, whatever you need to build a plane, you can find it in Querétaro. It's one of the biggest aerospace construction zones in the world, and a place where US money is still flowing despite a tense economic standoff between the two countries.
We're not politicians. We have work to do. There's only the things we can control are to make sure we get the best possible people in the best possible location.
For this American manufacturer, which works in partnership with France's Safran, Mexico is still a good place to invest.
We are starting another plant just in the park next door, Aerotech Industrial Park, and we're also making composite parts for the LEAP engine, and that will start later this year.
As for the automotive sector, which is wrestling with NAFTA renegotiations, business is better than ever. Exports of car parts from Mexico to the United States went up by 9.2% between January 2016 and January 2017, the biggest growth in 3 years. The Mexican Minister of Transport is optimistic.
Investments are increasing, the manufacturing sector is growing, exports of vehicles to the US are growing too. My interpretation is that there's just one America here, North America.
Donald Trump has previously congratulated himself on Fiat Chrysler's return to the US when it relocated its Mexican factory to Michigan. But Trump's so-called victory doesn't match reality. Fiat just replaced the production of its Ram van with a different model in its Mexican factory.
The whole point of trade deals is to bring down barriers. But what difference do they make in practice? Kate Moody's here with more. Kate.
Well, Stephen, a trade agreement usually means no import tariffs among members. And in the case of the European Union, a fixed one-time tax on products when they enter the bloc. Trade deals are not always all-encompassing. Countries can try to protect certain industries more than others by including them or not in their international deals. Let's take the dairy sector as an example. China imposes between 10 and 20% extra for dairy imports. When it doesn't have a trade deal, the EU charges tariffs of up to 52% for dairy goods, while Canada makes it all but impossible to sell foreign dairy products there, with a prohibitive 270% duty on imported milk. Including dairy in a trade agreement, though, can cut down on such fees. Import tariffs can vary by sector and by country of origin. Beef sold by other countries to the US can be taxed up to 26%. Since taking office, Donald Trump has slapped a 30% tariff on solar panels and 20% on washing machines from abroad, a measure mostly impacting Asian firms. He's considering similar measures for imported steel. A debate about globalization has made these wide-ranging trade deals less popular. NAFTA's fate hangs in the balance, as does the UK's post-Brexit relationship. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is struggling to stay afloat without the US, while Canada and the EU are in the process of implementing CETA, one of the few mega deals that has so far survived the changing landscape. Stephen?
Kate, thank you very much for that. Next, to what one company is calling a very sad goodbye. The dockless bike-sharing firm Gobee Bike has shut down its services in France after suffering widespread damage and theft of its fleet. Since last October, Gobee says that 60% of its bikes have been stolen or destroyed, leading the firm to file hundreds of complaints to French police. In the end, the losses were simply too great, and they're pulling out of the French market. Well, Gobee isn't the only company offering dockless bikes in Paris. China's OFO is also operating in the French capital. They have 1,000 bikes in the city, and I'm joined in studio by Laurent Canel, who is the General Manager of OFO France. Thank you very much for coming into us.
You're welcome.
Are you surprised by what happened to Gobee?
Well, it just tells us that you need to be ready for this business. It's a maintenance-intensive business. We run this business in 250 cities in 21 countries every day. So you need to be ready for an operations-intensive business, and we're ready for that.
Are you experiencing the same things as Gobee, where they were saying 60% of their fleet damaged or destroyed?
No, we don't have this type of damages. We don't see anything different happening in Paris or France than in the UK or in Italy or in Austria. So we're actually seeing, the normal start of a business. It's, again, an operations-intensive business. So we're set up to cope with that.
So what sort of percentage do you deal with when it comes to damaged bikes or to losing bikes?
It's a very competitive business. I don't disclose these numbers. But again, no major difference from UK, Italy, Spain or France. So we're in normal business.
So it's something that the company really has to build into their finances if you're developing. How is the French market different in any way from those other markets you mentioned? Are people picking up on the ideas fast?
So I think every market is different from China and different between different markets. The cities are different, so the congestion in the city, the ease to use bikes in the city or to park in the city different. For example, in Paris, we have people who are educated to biking and to sharing bikes because they've been doing so for 10 years. So we're actually entering a very educated market, and they're ready to do more biking and to adopt new usage.
One of the things that people complain about with the dockless bike system is bikes being left in inconvenient places in a path or in front of a doorway. How do you cut down on that sort of thing?
Yeah, so it takes a few things. It takes technology. So with technology, we monitor where the bikes are. We can create some incentive for people to behave well or some negative incentive if they don't. It takes some education, and we have a lot of communication channels with our customers. And it also takes a new way of working together with cities. So we need to be good citizens with the cities. We need to discuss about parking space, what's the best way of parking in the city, how do you accommodate more bike usage in the city. So we need to do that progressively, and that's what we started doing in France.
And how have your interactions been with the city of Paris? Are they very conscious? Are they very, I suppose, watchful of problems with bikes being left in the wrong places?
Yeah, I think it's been quite constructive. We've been talking for a few months. I think they're very enthusiastic about growing the usage of bike. It's a no-brainer. Bike is very efficient individually and collectively. It's green, so it's a fantastic opportunity to change scale for biking. They're also very prudent about public space utilization and about bad behavior. So we need to grow progressively with them and to have a good and honest communication with them.
You have 1,000 bikes at the moment in Paris. How fast do you see that number growing?
Yeah. So we choose to deploy very progressively. So we tested the market with 1,000 bikes. It's been working pretty well. After a month, we had multiple usage of every single bike every day. So it's a few thousand trips every day. That's very good. We're also adjusting the operations model. So that's why we take our time. But in the coming months, we're going to increase density, because if you want to find a bike when you need one, you need more than 1,000 bikes in Paris.
You collect quite a lot of data in this business because you have an idea of where journeys are happening more accurately than with a docked system. How do you manage that data, and what do you use it for?
So I think the first focus of this data is creating competitive advantage. So we want to offer better bikes available when you need it, where you need it, and to offer better service. So it's a key competitive advantage first. And second, we're also discussing this with the cities, and we're open to to contribute to urban planning and thinking about the new usages. So we are having those conversations at the moment.
Laurent Canel, General Manager of OFO France, thank you very much for speaking to us. Now, this year's Winter Olympics have wrapped up, and the focus is now shifting to the next Games in Beijing in 2022. In an effort to drum up greater interest in the event, Chinese authorities are encouraging people to try out sports like skiing for the first time. That's good news for those making and selling the necessary clothing and equipment, as our correspondents in Beijing have been finding out.
Beijing's Bird's Nest usually plays host to high-level competition. But these days, the stadium built for the 2008 Olympics has been turned into a skiing resort aimed at beginners. Snowboarding, curling and cross-country skiing are all on offer for Beijing residents to try and experience firsthand the joys of winter sports.
I'm a bit afraid, but also very happy. It's so much fun.
I'd only ever watched winter sports on TV. This is my first time skiing. Next time I'll probably try ice skating to see how it is.
Winter sports are a relatively new trend in China. Beijing's nearest ski resorts are located about 3 hours' drive away. In this shop, sales are going through the roof, and they're expected to keep climbing over the next few years, thanks to the upcoming 2022 Olympics.
We opened in 2008, and every year the business grows, with annual sales rising from 800,000 to 5 million yuan today. So I think the industry is booming. Skiing is changing from an elitist sport to one that everybody does. It's a huge change.
The government wants 130 million Chinese to take up skiing by the year 2025. But this is a huge challenge. Authorities are hoping winter sports will boost consumption and stimulate China's slowing growth.
This is a booming market, but it's still the early stage. The main issue is that there are a lot of beginners, so the challenge is to make sure that these new skiers become intermediate and come often to ski.
The other challenge, to train and produce future Chinese champions. And for that, there's still a long way to go.
Well, that's it from us for now. If you'd like to get in touch about any of the stories we've been covering, you can find us on Facebook at France24 Business, or you can tweet me at NewStephen. Until next time, thanks for watching.